My name is Tamiym. I am 30 years old and I'm a live performance and portrait photographer. But I don't know if I can call myself live performance anymore. Not at the moment anyways.
When did you start taking a liking into photography?
It's an interesting question. I don't actually remember the first time that I took an interest in photography. I do remember it always being something that was there, but not necessarily something that was a focus in my mind. So my dad was, I'd say, a photographer in the sense that he took pictures of us as a kid on film cameras, and then as we travelled he took pictures of the areas that we went to. We lived in Papua New Guinea for 3.5 years, and I've now got the albums where I found all his photos that he took while we were there, and I was like, oh, like obviously at the time I was a kid and I didn't really realise this is what he was doing, but he has amazing landscapes, he has like portraits of the people that lived there, and yeah, it was great to see that and go, okay, there is some sort of a, I don't know what you'd call that, a legacy, a transfer, I don't know what you call that. There is something there in terms of that creative side, and I now inherited his film camera as well. But I do recall being interested in both photography and film at various times in my young adulthood, I guess. People gifted me cameras, I bought cameras. They weren't necessarily great, but the vision was there. I tried making movies on a tiny little camera of a house that we had built in India. Actually, we lived in Darjeeling in the mountains, and we had a house built from the scratch up. So I made a little film of that whole process, I remember, and gave it to the guy who was building the house, and he was really happy, he loved it. So it was kind of always there, but never at the forefront of my mind, if that makes sense.
How long have you been a professional photographer?
I don't know how long I've been a professional photographer. 3 years? 2.5 years? Maybe? I'm not entirely sure. I haven't properly kept track. I probably should have. I've been more focused on surviving and thriving, and yeah, trying to make it happen.
What were you doing before?
Before this, I worked for an architectural firm, and before that I worked in retail for a year, and before that I was at uni.
And the latter job, how was that from transitioning from that full-time job to being a full-time photographer?
So there was I think there's like a lot of turning points in people's lives where you decide to switch from one thing to another, a way of thinking, a direction that you're moving in, I don't know, a physical look perhaps. And I think that those turning points are quite concrete in our minds sometimes, and sometimes they happen very gently and we end up in places that we didn't expect to end up in. This one for me was a very decisive decision, in the sense that I was sitting down, I was in Spain, I was sitting on a veranda looking out over the mountains, and there was a pool there, and I was just like, yeah, I'm gonna leave my job. And I was in a great job. I had a very decent salary, it kept going up, I had good perks to the job, you know, it was everything that you would want from that sort of stability. And I just felt that this is not where I'm supposed to be, and this is not the life that I envisioned for myself or fits who I am as a person. And I decided I need to switch this, I need to switch this up. I need to be more free in my days to be able to do the things that I would like to do and need to do, and to tell the stories that I need to tell. And so I decided at that point, yeah, this is it, I'm leaving. And I literally came back to London, where I live at the moment, and I don't remember when I handed in my notice, but I think it was pretty soon after that. Or was it? I can't remember, you know, but I think it was pretty soon after that. I was like, yeah, this has got to be done. And I literally I literally left.
Was it a scary decision to make?
No, leaving my day job wasn't a scary decision. I'm not someone that gets overly worried about things. Now that can be an issue because sometimes I don't worry about things that I should be worried about. But for more times, I'm able to turn that situation around regardless of what it is. So I try not to worry too much about an extensive period. I focus more on, cool, how am I breaking this down into bite sizes? If I don't do that, then I can't get anywhere because it will overwhelm me and it will be too much. So that actual decision to leave my job was not a scary decision at all. And leaving that stability was not a scary decision at all either for me. A lot of people were asking like, oh, are you sure you want to do this? It's like, you know, basically saying, like where you are is pretty good. Do you know what I mean? Are you sure you want to take this risk, this gamble? And for me, it wasn't really a question. I decided that, yeah, this is where I'm at. I know what I want for my life and what it needs to look like. I may not know necessarily where I'm supposed to be, but I know what steps I'm supposed to be taking right now to make sure that I am there when that time comes. So deciding to leave my job was an exciting prospect, a relief in a sense, but not at all scary.
Did you face any challenges or setbacks as soon as you changed from being full-time to a full-time photographer?
I feel like I didn't face any setbacks when I left my job until I'd say this year, which is 2020, the year of setbacks for some. And when I first left, everything went pretty smoothly. I had planned in ahead to a degree, in the sense that I had spent time collecting what I needed in order to do that job, that new job that I was entering into, or as much as I was able to collect, I had collected beforehand. So I sort of left it with a lot of the stuff that I needed for that career, as it were, or that new direction. And so it was just a case of finding the work, maintaining the work, doing the work. And I'd say the challenges were more to do with having to pick up really quickly what I need to do in certain situations, because this was not a place I'd been in before. I'd been in challenging situations before, but not necessarily situations like I found myself in now. And knowing how to react when things happen in this new line of work was more the challenges. But I learned very quickly, and that comes with just staying awake and staying focused and just paying attention to what's going on and making sure that you learn from the mistakes that you do make, and also learn from the mistakes that other people have made and are able to pass along to you. And that was, I guess, the challenges that I faced. But I don't see them so much as challenges as things that I had to go through in order to get to where I am now in terms of my processes. I think processes are really important, in I think a lot of fields, but particularly in this field as well, because there's a lot of things that can go wrong and a lot of mistakes that you can make in the setup process. And I'm making sure that from beginning to end, that process is quite clear in your mind and you stick to it. I'm not a very rigid person, but I'm learning to stick to those processes in terms of, this is how I do something. I start with this, I move on to this, I move on to this, I move on to this, and I finish like this. If I do this every single time, the outcome is going to be the same. If I deviate from that, there is the chance that something could go wrong. And so learning to do stuff like make sure my batteries are charged the day before, make sure that I have a workflow set up for backing up stuff. I've lost stuff before, got stuff back, and that was scary, like really scary. But now having processes in place to make sure that never happens again, and like I've done it the once and I'm not doing it again, do you know what I mean? And so it's getting those processes in place is key, I think, to success in anything. And they say that you're meant to build habits and small habits over time, and I think it's really important in any craft that you engage in to build up your processes around that. And if you have those in place, it becomes really easy to be free and creative on the other side of that, and not worry about too much, and have that freedom that you need to be creative. But it's important to have that side, and this is the side that I'm not necessarily the best at, but something that I've had to learn to bed down and have in place, so that I can go and do the free stuff, so that I can go and step out and not worry about things. And so for me, that would be, I guess, the challenges that I faced in like the first few years of doing this.
Throughout your journey, did you receive any support to becoming a full-time photographer?
I'm a quite independent person, as is most of my family, in terms of doing the things that we want to do and not really worrying about it, or not really caring too much. So, for example, very good example is one of my sisters, Kez, who is a barber. She is a painter and an artist. She is a creative in every sense of the word. She was in fact doing street photography before I ever was taking it seriously. I think she even studied photography at A-levels. And she is like an all-round powerhouse of a creative, and she doesn't care. She'll literally step out and stand in the street and do street photography and not worry about what anyone thinks. Literally take pictures of people and not be concerned about, oh, people are watching me, or oh, this is happening or that's happening. She shaved her hair, she's grown it, she shaved it, she's grown it. I've done the same thing actually, but for her it's more important, I guess, because my grandmother would say, why would you do that? Why? On my dad's side, why would you cut your hair? A woman's beauty is in her hair, is what my grandmother would say. And my sister would shave her head, dye her head, and not care what anyone thinks. And so I feel like that is something that my whole family carries in terms of me and my siblings. And to a degree, even my parents, which is probably where it started from, stepping out and living a very different life to what other people do. We were homeschooled for our formative years until about 10, 12, and then we had a teacher while we lived abroad. And I came back to the UK and went to school for the first time when I did my GCSE exams. I sat my exams in a school for the first time, and that was the first time I'd been to school officially, like for a set period of time. Did my A-levels there. And so the whole sort of upbringing that we've had has been very non-traditional, in the sense that we were taught that this is the path that you're supposed to lead, and if you're supposed to lead this path, that's the path you're supposed to follow. And that's never been a question in my mind in terms of where I'm going and what I'm doing. So I do very much, there's a selfishness in that as well, where we do things for ourselves, in the sense that I will step out and decide to do this today because I want to do this today, not because I'm obligated to, and not because I have to, but because I'd like to do this and I want to do this. So when it came to deciding to pick up photography, my journey has been very free, in the sense that I internally made this decision, and I didn't really ask anyone's permission or even ask like advice on that process too much, to a degree, because I knew that I would eventually make that decision myself. And when I did make it, I stepped out, and I didn't expect any support from anybody, in terms of financial or emotional support or anything like that at all. I step out very much decisively, and I don't expect anything from anyone. I don't even expect success necessarily in the ways that it might be defined, but I do expect to achieve the steps that I lay out to achieve, and I do expect to reach certain places, provided I put in the energy, the effort, the time, the financial input that I need to put in, and providing I back it, I do believe that I will get to where I'm supposed to get to. And I think the whole other side of this as well is listening to where you're supposed to be at any given point in time. I strongly believe in seasons. I strongly believe that there are seasons in your life where you're supposed to be in a certain place, and other seasons where you're supposed to be somewhere else. And it's about being conscious and paying attention to literally where God is calling you at that particular point in your life. Where is the next season? And you might not be meant to stay in the same place. Do you know what I mean? For 5 years, it might be time to flip it up, which is why I'm not very precious either with this. So while right now I am considered, I am a photographer at the moment, a live performance and portrait photographer, which is the direction I was pushed into. Because when I first started this, again, I didn't decide I'm going to do this type of photography. I stepped in and I thought, cool, let me give this a try. Where am I drawn to? And I've always been drawn to music. A lot of my friends are beautiful and amazing musicians, singers, and I love supporting them and being around them and uplifting them, and that's something that I'm very proud to be able to do. So I was immediately drawn to that. Portraiture, I love telling stories. This is where for me it all began, with stories. I can talk about that later on, but I ended up doing these two things, and that for me was a combination of hard work and paying attention to where I'm supposed to be and allowing those currents to take me to where I needed to be. And that allowed me to get to here, as it were. And support-wise and pressure-wise, like I said, maybe to my detriment, but I do not feel any obligations to anyone. And I also don't feel any pressures from anyone to necessarily do things in any particular way. I've always felt the urge to do what I would like to do and go in that direction. And as I look through the success of my family, because we don't come from anything at all, we don't actually have anything, so I've always known that I've got to make something. If I'm going to get anywhere, I've got to make something. But interestingly, that's never been the driving point for me either. That's never been the goal. The money's never been the goal. For me, the goal has been, where am I called to be? What am I supposed to be doing? And what stories am I supposed to be telling at any particular point in time? And that has been more of the vision for me and the future for me, rather than necessarily the money. The money comes later. The money comes after. The money comes anyways. Do you know what I mean? The money will come. It will come. But if you stick to that vision and where you're called to be, and even if you don't clearly see that path, because I don't know where I'm going to be in 5 to 10 years, and I don't even know, say for example, if I'd still be doing photography. I'm pretty sure I will be, but it probably won't be the only thing I'm doing, and I've never seen it as the main thing, the only thing that I'm going to do. I just see it as one of the things that will allow me to be in the place that I need to be in the future for the season that I'm supposed to be in then. To be able to tell the stories I need to on behalf of the people whose stories need to be told. That for me is the sort of validation. That for me is the support. That for me is the affirmation that I need, knowing that I'm on that path. And when it comes to everyone else, I'm good.
What are your biggest achievements?
I really hate this question. I really hate this question because let me break it down. So a friend of mine said to me, you need to celebrate more of the things that you've done and the things that you've achieved, because I don't see you necessarily celebrating them in that way. And I thought about it and I was like, actually he was right, because I don't feel like I'm in a place where I've achieved very much. And now that is not to diminish anyone and everyone that has achieved what I've achieved, because a lot of people have, or done what I've done, because a lot of people have. And this is where I'm learning to change, and learning to be more respectful, because it is an achievement. There are things that I have achieved that are considered achievements. It's just that in my mind, to me, I don't feel like I have gotten to where I need to be, and I haven't achieved the things that I need to feel satisfied that I'm having the impact that I necessarily am supposed to have, or that I'm called to have, if that makes sense. And that is about timing, and that is about patience. So for me, I'm very much moving my way down or along, so to speak, and things are happening. For example, this year was the year of virus, and the year that half my work got cut off because half my work is live shows, performance, tours, festivals, and that just dipped. That all dipped, and yeah, that just. And so, at first, I was quite terrified, and I thought, what am I going to do now? Do I have to go work at Tesco's? And I genuinely considered it as an option. One of my friends actually did it. And then stopped after a week. But I considered it as an option because I thought, and not even a pride thing, literally, what am I supposed to do? Shall I just do this because it's there? And then something told me, I thought about it, and something told me, do you know what? Yeah, you have to stay on track. You have to stay focused and stay locked into track, because you have to really want this, and you have to really need this, and you have to really believe in that direction that you're being called. And if you don't believe in it, then why are you even here? And if I didn't believe in it, I should actually go to Tesco's and then find a new route for myself, because it means that this route is gone. And that's not to say that we don't need to do what we have to do to survive. I'm not saying that. I'm saying believe in where you're supposed to be and where you're supposed to be going. And so I decided to stay on track, and random things came out of it. I mean, I had my first NME cover this year, which again at the time for me didn't feel like a big deal at all. And then they loved what I did the first time, which was actually an image I'd already taken previously at a festival somewhere. And so they called me back to do another for another artist, and then they called me back to do another, and I've done 3 of them now. So, but for me it wasn't a big deal necessarily at the time. It was just another job, because what it represents to me isn't necessarily anything too close to my heart or too close to the stories that I want to tell. And it's a fantastic thing to have done. And after my friend spoke to me, I printed them out and put them on my wall, because I'm like, this is cool. This is something that I've done that is great, and I'm proud of it, and I'm gonna celebrate it. I'm definitely gonna celebrate it, but it isn't close to the heart of what I'm called to do as a creator, and this is just for me the beginning of this journey. And so that is why I don't like the question of what are your greatest achievements, because for me they don't feel like my greatest achievements so far, what I've done. They just feel like steps that are taking me towards somewhere that I'm going. And I would encourage people, like my friend did, to celebrate the little things, to slow down, which is something I've been learning to do as well, to slow down in everything, because I can be quite, let's go, let's be efficient, let's be fast paced, let's get this, let's make this happen, and take time to just chill out, slow that process down, and do celebrate those wins as they come, but do keep in mind where you're going, and don't get caught up in where you are, but remember that you've got somewhere to be, and stay on track.
What are some of your highlights?
The great thing, right, about going where you're supposed to be and chasing after where you're called, the great thing about that is it puts you in absolutely privileged positions that I'm so grateful to have been in, like situations I'm so grateful. For example, which I mentioned earlier, being able to capture and document my friends doing amazing things on amazing stages, like producing amazing music and producing amazing music, yeah, and literally killing it. Like for me, that is such an honor to be like in the pit or backstage, like capturing their joy, capturing their achievements. And it is one of the greatest things ever to and if you love music already and they're your friends, it's the best feeling to just watch them do what they do and know that you're part of that process that supports the music. And there is a huge realm that supports the music. Huge amount of people take part in productions. Some of that stuff you never ever see. For example, tour managers, production managers, they do an amazing job behind the scenes, pulling everything together to put on the shows that you love, to put on the stages that you love, and to showcase the music that you love, the artists that you love. And I love being able to be part of that, and also to document that as well, because I get to see everything. I get to see the artists, I get to see the behind the scenes, the people who actually make the magic happen and allow them to have that platform. And that for me is one of the most beautiful experiences that I've had. And particularly during this season of coronavirus where everything shut down, those are the people who have been closest to my heart, because they necessarily can't pivot to anywhere else. I have the freedom as a photographer slash videographer to be able to do anything. Literally, I can go start shooting pigs on a pig farm. Do you know what I mean? Someone's gonna want that, maybe, I don't know. And but they can't pivot like necessarily in the same dramatic way that I can. So for them, they're stuck at home, and I honestly, I don't know what to say, because they are as much the show as the music is the show. And I think that one of the biggest failings and mistakes that we can make during this period is to underestimate how much value they hold as creatives, part of that industry. And I think we're going to see a significant loss if we don't pay attention to those people who actually build the whole structure. Everything that we fed on during lockdown, all the shows, all the music, all of that was built by those people. And so yeah, I'm taking this like small moment to say that it's an honor to support them and to be by their side. And also right now, any ways that we can help are really important. So yeah, that is one of the most, I don't know what to say, the amazing things about what I get to do. Some of the other things that I get to do, I'll go to amazing festivals. I went to Glastonbury, I went to Coachella, and with Little Sims, amazing experiences. We went to South America, Asia. We did shows literally everywhere, and I'm honoured to have been able to do that on behalf of Sims and to be taken to these amazing locations and eat new food, witness new places, new cultures, meet new people. Such an honour, literally such an honour, and something I do not take for granted at all. While it still is work, I am appreciative that it is work in ridiculous environments that are just not normal, and so I'm very grateful. However, that is part of what I wanted when I first started this journey. So it's about knowing where you want to go and where you want to be. I wanted that freedom. I'd also decided I wanted to travel. This was the year before I travelled literally everywhere for a whole year, touring, doing shows. I had decided, I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I was like, I've had enough of being in the UK. I travelled loads when I was in my teens and with my parents, and I had taken a break, and I was like, I actually want to do this. So I spoke it. I literally, there is the power of life and death on the tips of our tongues, and like I spoke that, and I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Don't know how I'm going to do it. The next year, I spent the whole year travelling. So I do take on board that I had an influence in getting myself to that place, and I also take on board that the people who helped me, I'm so grateful to them for trusting me and putting me onto those things, and combined your energy with other people's trust in you, and you will get to where you need to get to. So Stories is where this all started for me. Before school, actually, when I was a kid, we were reading so much, me and my sisters. My mum was a great reader, and she bought us books upon books upon books. I remember reading the series about Native Americans from their life perspective, and like I was just thrown into this world of this whole other way of living where, yeah, and it just drew me in and took me into this whole landscape, and I just could see everything, and I just knew what it looked like and what it felt like, and I wanted to be an American Indian. I used to run around with like socks hanging out of my pants to make the, like, you know what they wear, and like as a kid just jumping around, and I was thinking, this is like, I was just drawn into it. This was a world that I could see just through pages, just through being taken in. And that's where it started for me. This whole journey started right there on the pages of books. And as I grew older, I read more. I read crazier books. I read stuff that just educated me and took me to different like heights of imagination. And I went and did my GCSEs, A-levels, smashed English lit, got like A stars, and I thought, this is it, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And went to uni, did English lit for 2 years, and then thought, oh yeah, this ain't it. Did a year of film studies. And that was something else that I got drawn into, because I grew up in a Christian household and we weren't allowed to watch TV, and we weren't allowed to watch films. And so as soon as I was old enough to, I literally watched everything that I could watch. Like, I just watched as much as possible, because I was like, oh my gosh, this is like books, this is the narrative element, but now I can actually see it. Oh my, like, look what we can do with this. Drawn into that side of it. Did a year of film studies, so I did 3 years of uni, then I was like, hold on, I need to work now, so what am I doing? But that never left me. The narrative never left me, the stories never left me. That's where it started for me, and that's where it is. That's why I am where I am now. And part of this visual side of what I'm doing is about telling stories, and telling stories that are important, and telling stories truthfully, and telling stories courageously, and telling stories about things that need stories told about, that need to be highlighted. And I think that is one of the key things as someone who creates, because we all create, and as people who create, as humans, we need to find ways to tell our stories truthfully, because there's a lot of nonsense that is out there right now. There is a lot of nonsense, and telling truthful stories is the only way that you can combat the nonsense that is out there. There's a lot of disinformation, there is a lot of straight out lies out there. And as what I'm proud of young people today particularly though, is that we seem to have this energy to be truthful, and to speak truth to power, and to cut through. And regardless what is said about us, there is a moral element, I think, to young people today that I'm extremely proud of, in terms of what we fight for, what we believe in, what we push for. And while there is selfishness everywhere, that for me cuts through, and I love that I'm seeing that. I'm seeing truthful stories being told, and I'd like to encourage people to tell more truthful stories from their perspectives, from other people's perspectives that need it. If you've got a platform, use your platform to tell those stories, which is why it's an honour to be here today to support this platform, because they're telling stories, and these stories are critical. And one of the most beautiful things I think today about, I'm going to show you this, about this here, and a lot of people say things about this and they're like, everyone's got a phone, everyone's on their phone. But what I love about this, not only as a photographer, but just historically, is the history that has been documented on these is ridiculous. Like, I did history in school for GCSEs, and we're like digging out information. Do you know what I mean? Going through documents to find information, images, pictures, and we're drawing nuggets of history from these images. And of course, one of the dangerous things is that history is always written by the victors. So you've got this whole like historical piece there, and you're drawing information out, but you don't know what you're drawing out. Is it even true? Is it lies? Is it just how it's been painted? Is it just the perspective? But the glory about today is that everyone's got a phone, and we're always taking pictures of everything, which I love, because it means that in 2, 3, 4, 500 years time, when people go back and look at this particular time, they're going to know what I had for breakfast, lunch and dinner. They're going to know what was in my fridge. They're going to know who I talked to, what I believed, who my friends were, what music I listened to, how I behaved, how I dressed. They're going to know all of that in excruciating detail. But that's going to allow them to inform their future and inform themselves on the stories that happen now, on the stories that took place now. And it's going to allow them to have that depth of knowledge about what took place now. And there is, particularly during lockdown, and this whole year has been crazy because we've had literally civil rights movement, we've had a pandemic, we've had lies everywhere. Like, it's been a mad year, but it's all been documented, and it's all there to look at and explore and dig into. And so I'm proud of people who are telling those truthful stories, and I'd encourage people to keep documenting, keep telling stories, and regardless of how, be it through music, be it through photos, videos, through poetry, through writing, these are all outlets to tell our stories, and I'm just telling them through one way, and you can tell them through your way. And I'd encourage you to keep chasing that and keep being truthful. And the more that we do that, the more that we're going to push all the hate to the side, the more that we're going to push all the greed to the side, and the more we're going to realize within ourselves as well where that hate and greed sits. And by opening ourselves up to those stories, we're going to be like, okay, there's perspectives here that I had never considered, and this is a part of me I can let go of now. Definitely something I've done, and this is a part of me I can let go of now, and I will be a better person as a result of that, regardless of anything else. Even just on that level, it's good. And yeah, so that's, for me, has been one of the lessons of this year, is it started with stories, and it's got to continue with stories, and let's be truthful.